Welcome to Professor Game Podcast, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who brings the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration that help us in the process of getting the students to learn what we teach. And I'm Rob Alvarez. I teach and work at IE Business School in Madrid, where we create interactive and engaging learning materials. Want to know more? Go to professorgame.com/subscribe, start on our email list, and ask me anything. Engagers, today we have a very special guest because all our guests are super incredible, but she is I met her as an award winner very recently in Chicago, and her name is Naza Djafarova. But Naza, before we get started and make your introduction, are you prepared to engage?
Yes, definitely.
Let's do this. Let's go, because she has 20 years of business and management experience, and she has been instrumental in implementing innovative approaches to development, support, and delivery of online and hybrid courses and programs with national and international partners. Her team at the Digital Education Strategies is one of the most innovative and efficient distance education centers in Canada and has grown to be a leader in digital education and one of the largest providers of university credit online courses in Ontario, with over 35 international and national organizations that have recognized the department work, including the OLC International Awards for Excellence in Institution-Wide Online Education. She's a lead in grant proposals and a number of educational initiatives, providing technology and operational management expertise in the development of continuing educational programs. So Naza, is there anything that we missed from that intro?
No, and the most important that right now our goal is to create serious games for our learners, especially for online learners, to engage them in their learning experience.
That is absolutely fantastic, and that's exactly one of the main reasons why you're here. And of course, because we were talking in the pre-chat about how great the product that the one product that I've seen from your team that I saw at GameCon in Chicago in 2018 was, and I'm sure all the rest of the work that we'll be able to discuss during the interview will be great as well. But Naza, working at Ryerson and in the Chang School as well, what does a regular day with Naza look like? What is your, what does it look like? What does it feel like to be Naza today?
Well, because I have approximately 20 staff members in my department, and we're working very closely with other departments like marketing, program areas which are connected to the university. So all the courses which are for credit courses we develop as online courses in online format for delivery. So I'm basically, the engage is a big word. So my day is how to make, engage, inspire your colleagues to take initiatives, to support ideas, my ideas, to change the way we deliver and develop courses and programs for our students, and how to implement changes to our organization, because it's not only the development of engaging solutions, learning solutions, it's also changing ourselves, how we think and how we approach learning.
Fantastic. So there's many things going on.
Yeah, and it's not only that, because my engage starts actually just before I come to work, because I have a 5-year-old. So how to engage her to eat breakfast, to get dressed, to get to school. So that is a kind of a part of my day. Yeah.
And part of the inspiration that you draw on for because we do change from being children to being adults. We certainly have a lot of changes, but some things are certainly not so different. And I'm sure you've seen it as well with some of the students. You see even executive students, and you feel sometimes like, I mean, if they're whatever age they are, how is it that you see behaviors that are like high school students as well? It's so funny. But Anyways, we would like to move on to some of the stories that we always like to have from our guests. And the first one is a radical change from what we've been hearing, because we know that you have all these awards, all these accolades, that you've been doing all this incredible work, but it also comes with, these learning experience, or these what we like to call favorite fails, or first attempts in learning. So what would you say is one of those stories, or your favorite story of a fail that led you actually to maybe future success, to a massive learning? Can you bring us to the ground level? We want to be there with you, Naza.
Yeah, we actually the School of Nursing at Rars University, as well as two colleges in Ontario, reached to us and asked us to develop games with them, and they were talking about branching scenario games. So when we started, we jumped, of course, and we loved the idea, and we started the development. And then it's not that we failed now looking back, but it was so difficult to create the games in multidisciplinary teams. There, where we realized that all the dates, all the schedule is, we couldn't basically deliver in time. We did deliver a good product, but it was through pain and suffering. So then at that point, we realized that we can't go ahead with the other games, because we have to understand how we effectively create games. Also, we always have to know that at universities, it is a challenge to get time from professors. So even if we provide them with instructional designers, game developers, the staff, faculty members, they have a limited time, and they are not necessarily have time to write long scripts and engage with us in game development. So when we start looking at some methodology to create to basically to create effectively and efficiently games, we realized that it's not much out there. So we actually went and ahead and designed the art of serious game design methodology. And it's specifically for multidisciplinary teams at universities, when you don't have enough time, and you have teams, support teams, but everyone has its own niche. Basically, we bring faculty member, instructional designer, game designer, and how we, in a very short time frame, we create the idea of the game. So for conceptual stage, when we get the information from the faculty members, their objectives, their vision, and we collect this information together with instructional design and game developers, then everything is at least might be a little bit easier to move on in game development. So we look, maybe I'm going ahead. Rob, let me know if I'm...
Before we continue, I would like to know, like, from that experience that you had there, that maybe the failure could be on the fail, or the first attempt in learning was on the schedules, on the time that it took, and maybe the amount of effort that it required, which you were maybe not expecting. But what did you learn from that experience? What would be something that you would draw and say, look, after that, we would do things a little bit differently, or we would, from now on, we would have been doing this way. What would be that small, that nugget of advice that you could draw from that experience?
The problem was that we assumed, and people sometimes assume, that if you put game developer with the faculty member, or instructional designer with faculty member, or just one or two people basically creating games, it's sometimes we will fail. We need a team working together. That we realize now, that we cannot bring just a game developer, because I will tell you, the game developers, they will steer the faculty members in a direction what they know. For example, if you and I have actually examples, not only our example, but the examples around Ontario, when faculty member will be introduced to game developer who knows C#. And then the whole game, it's about technology versus really pedagogy. that was a challenge, that game developers sometimes take away or don't understand or misunderstand the pedagogical framework of why we need the game and what is the purpose of this game specifically for the target audience for undergrad or graduate students in that class. So that's why we needed to put together very well multidisciplinary team together and keep going. We find that even if we will put the one meeting with multidisciplinary team and then we won't get these people together till the end of the project, I will tell you there will be a problem. So it has to be continuously, actually this team has to meet on a regular basis. So to go back to the game design document and update it together.
That makes sense. I mean, when you're working with different disciplines and you have this multidisciplinary team, they're continuously developing something. I guess that key learning from what I'm hearing is as well to how to get the communication together. It's not just about dumping a game designer in an instructional team. It's about how they work together. How do you put inside all the processes and all the things to make sure that it's not only an entertaining game, it's actually a learning game, how it works for that audience and so on. So I think that was a very powerful experience that you had there. And you were mentioning something about the process that you followed, and I think that's when you felt that you were jumping ahead. But we would definitely like to know and understand a bit more of what does your process when creating these serious games looks like?
So that's why when we started, we didn't have a process. So when we realized after the first game that we're actually creating a bicycle or something should be around. So we start looking at methodologies and we couldn't find actually detailed methodology. There is a couple around, but we found some of them are not maybe specifically for university settings, or some of them different settings of multidisciplinary teams and so on. But most of the articles and most of our discussions, and we did actually a survey around in North America, we asked the question, do you use methodology or process especially for the conceptual stage of game design? And the answer was no, it's ad hoc methods. Basically, everyone is doing something different, and it depends on the team. If you are working with engineers and game developers, it will be one type of process, and it's not necessary. Includes pedagogical principles, and the faculty members usually looking at different just project management methodologies. So that was become very important for us to create actually a method. So some of our colleagues like Jesse Schall, he created the art of game design, and he has a very good book, and he has a deck of cards. So it was interesting how we were doing it parallel with Schall. So we worked. We didn't know that Schall creating the cards, and we created our own cards. And what is good that we did cards specifically for engaging multidisciplinary team to create games at university and college. J.C. Schall, he actually created the cards for corporate clients. So it's a different purpose, and the cards are different, but we used basically gamification elements as cards to engage multidisciplinary team to start designing the games. So we looked at storytelling, learning, gameplay, and user experience. And each card you answer on the questions. Because we find when we work with in multidisciplinary teams, we found that one or two people will be very active and the rest will be pretty much passive. And then the game is actually taking direction of design of the game, taking direction of the people who are most active. So the cards help us to basically to create a game. So everyone has to participate and answer the questions which we pose through the cards, which are written on the cards.
That sounds great. I mean, is that of public access, or do you have it private just for your internal process?
I will definitely share with you all the links. I also want to mention that when we create games and when we create and research, we always publish it as an open access. So we
Nice.
definitely making sure that it's all open access and all through Creative Commons license.
That's fantastic. That's very very generous and very helpful for people who are definitely not as advanced in the process as you have been. And that it's always great to be able to build upon the knowledge of other giants that have been working on this before us.
Yeah, because I believe at the university we believe that we are paid by basically taxpayers' money, and it has to go back to the community.
Fantastic, fantastic. And in that sense of having this amazing project and having all this process that you've now been using, can you tell us a story of maybe a time when you faced one of these challenges that was posed to you by a request or something similar, and you actually solved it using serious games or game-based learning, one of these solutions that you have created? Can you tell us a story about how that came through?
So we had academic integrity office at the university. They reach out to us. They wanted to make updates to their video scenario case studies. These case studies teach university students or first year university students about ethics and about academic integrity overall, and including plagiarism and cheating and so on. So it's very important. It become very important for our university and in Canada definitely. So what we did, we proposed a game-based learning, and this game will be released actually in fall of this year. We almost done with the game. It will be a number of testing done through the summer. So, and we will definitely also share with everyone, including you and your
Thank you very
listeners.
much.
So this, so we did use our methodology when we went and started working with the Academic Integrity Office, because they never designed the games, and we didn't know the topic of necessary all the details about academic integrity. So we got together and using the cards, answering the questions, and the questions are easy. Who is the target audience? Very typical questions. What will be the story of the game and where the game situated, like storytelling basically, also as much as well as learning outcomes and how people will be engaged through gameplay. So we start development, and we were very successful. It was much shorter than we expected, and we believe this will help us to engage students when they do self-study, because this is self-study materials. No one can it we don't have enough even resources to make sure that all the students are going through academic integrity training. So we thought that game-based learning actually can help to motivate students and engage students with self-study materials. This is I believe, I hope that game-based learning actually can solve the problem of self-study, because we know very well when we post self-study materials online and ask, staff organization to go through training, it's very boring. It's usually typical PowerPoint slides or some multiple choice questions, some videos, but it's still, I find that people are not engaged as we wish them to be engaged. So we thought that maybe game-based learning can solve it.
Yeah, because once again, the problem that you're observing is the engagement of the students, and that's definitely something to solve. There are also mixed or blended solutions where you, instead of having like, I don't know, 40 or whatever the amount of students that you have in your classes are, you could have a very large group of students who are taking the online class and maybe have access to a tutor who can help them out, and then maybe have some sort of, maybe not exactly a test, but something that towards the end you're able to make sure that they sort of understood the concepts, or they reflected upon the concepts that you're expecting them to go through. And I think that is a very exciting moment as well, to see how it goes through the first iteration of that game, and see how it goes, and maybe make some improvements if that's necessary as well. Just a quick break before we continue. Are you enjoying this podcast? If you're listening through a podcasting app, please subscribe and rate us on the app. This will be of great help to reach more engagers so we can change the world together through gamification. So Naza, now that we've been talking about your process, some fails, some success as well, and all the key learnings that we've gotten from that, what would you say is something that you would consider like a good practice or a best practice, something that almost any game-based learning approach could benefit from using?
Well, I think that anyone who wants to start gamification or game-based learning to design or use existing solution, I think should start playing games and read about the successes and failures. There is plenty of books. There is some great articles. I find that actually articles has more ideas sometimes and covers more details about game-based learning than books, because we're just starting we don't have yet enough books published, I think, on game-based learning. So I think that start playing games, because before, I will tell you because my master's in architecture. So I did a lot of programming in my life. So I felt that I know how to develop games because I have art background, I have technology, engineering. So it's kind of felt that I'm transdisciplinary enough person to know how to design games. And I believe that until I started actually playing games. Then I realized, no, you have to play games before you start any game-based learning projects.
Yeah, to understand from the other perspective as well, to be able to analyze what are the key things that you can take from that.
Yes.
And again, both in video games, in board games, in card games, and sports, and I mean, there's a huge plethora of things that you can learn from, and that you can see how people are engaging in those games as well. Like try to see it from the fences and see how people are engaging with those games. I definitely have to agree with that fantastic best practice. And we've been talking a lot about all these games, but we would like to know, Naza, what would be your favorite game?
Yeah, I'm playing so many games now. It's hard even to describe. Well, I'm playing our games a lot also. Favorite games. I know that all the games like Dream Blast, Angry Birds. My daughter is now really into Tom Gold Run. It's by Outfit 7 created. So it's all games when it engages you and you don't really learn anything. You just because of repetitiveness, you go into flow and it keeps you engaged. But I learned a lot from Oregon's Trail. Believe it or not, Oregon's Trail is actually where I learned a lot. I actually used Brian Wynn's, I don't know if I'm throwing the names and you don't know the names, but Brian Wynn created a framework for evaluation games. This is one of the things. If you're going into not just a simple gamification, but if you're working on serious games, I think that using evaluation and you evaluate one of the big successful games, you understand a lot about game mechanics. And that is important to understand game mechanics. And I believe that if you're a faculty member, if you're a manager team is creating games, you have to become that transdisciplinary person in order to be very successful. If you want to enter this area and be very successful, you have to be transdisciplinary to understand all the game mechanics, but the mechanics of game development, basically, from the beginning to the end, including marketing, by the way. And I find that how commercial games, they are very good in marketing. And we, from learning industry, from university and colleges, there is excellent games, but we're not using marketing well to market our products, because we created approximately, now we have around 7 games, and we didn't make any effort to market them.
That's fantastic. That makes a lot of sense. And Oregon Trail, as you started mentioning at the beginning, is one of those epic learning games from history, and there's a lot to learn and there's a lot to develop starting from that point.
Yeah.
And Naza, is there anybody that you would like to hear in an interview like this one in Professor Game?
Yes, definitely. I would love to hear from Dr. Hirumi, or his short name is Tusi. He's an associate professor of instructional technology at the University of Central Florida. He's actually published dozens of articles on game and gamification, and he is very well known for his presentation in international national conferences. So he's himself teaching instructional designers how to create serious games.
That sounds like a fantastic guest,
Yeah.
and I hope to meet him when I go to Orlando in the Serious Play conference, and I'm sure he'll be there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So in that same sense, you were mentioning resources that people should have. One of them is playing games, and the other one is reading books and articles. But in the sense of books, what book would you recommend to the engagers to read, and why?
Well, I'm actually looking right now. Didn't finish reading, but there is a book, How Playing Games Can Solve Problems, Create Insights, and Make Changes. The title, it's Knowledge Games by Karen Schreier.
Yes.
It might be an interesting book. And definitely, I will suggest people, if they didn't read Jesse Shell book, to read it. The Art of Game Design.
The Art of Game Design. It's a fantastic book. I can just look back in my book drawer and see my copy of that book as well. That's right next to quite a few others which I enjoy very much.
Yeah, but we do need more books.
Yes, and to be completely fair, I mean, if you say, for example, marketing, there are tons of like books for teaching marketing. It's not just a book for, raising the awareness or talking about maybe your framework and so on. It's a book that has, beyond academic integrity or not, it's also designed to be used for somebody else to teach that as well, and that's something we still don't have. It's still an area that is in having great developments as well.
Yeah, I wish I will have some colleagues who can, together with me, actually collect good games what people are using in classes, like something what is used, and get feedback how to implement it in curriculum, and actually create open digital textbooks with the serious games for universities and colleges.
That sounds very coherent with what we've been talking about throughout the interview. But Naza, we've been talking about other people and recommendation about what other people do. What would you say Naza Djafarova, what would that be your superpower, your sweet spot when creating these serious games, these game-based solutions?
Superpower. My superpower. My talent superpower. or what do you mean by superpower?
Yeah, that thing that you feel that you do great, that helps a lot when you're creating these solutions, like that point that you add to the discussion. It doesn't have to be absolutely unique, but it is that thing that helps you move forward these projects and be perhaps being the leader of your team as well.
Well, I think that I'm actually very good in engaging people. So I run around basically and engage people in new ideas. And I think that my background helps me a lot. Like I use the word transdisciplinary, which I actually start thinking about it when I read some research was done by Sylvester Arnap. He calls the team transdisciplinary team. It is very important when I engage faculty members, instructional designers, game developers. I have to bring this team together, multidisciplinary team, and make it work. So I have to know a little bit, basically understand where they're coming from.
Understand each of their disciplines.
Yes, and get consensus on the game design.
That is absolutely great. And the final question, it's what we call our gamified question that comes directly from the audience. At the beginning of the interview, we don't know which question it'll be. In this case, we got a question from somebody who is anonymous, who decided not to put his or her name. And this person is asking, why did you decide to use games as an inspiration for your work?
Inspiration for work.
Yeah, I mean, why did you decide to go for game-based learning or serious games? I'm guessing that games in general inspired somehow what your current job is doing.
Yeah, it's because we are developing online solutions for universities and for our clients. And when we hear that students are not engaged, that concerns us. And we were looking at something more innovative, what is coming our way, adaptive learning, when we're talking about VR, 3D video, and so on. I realized that game or gamification has to be a part of it. So, for example, even if you are doing VR, you have to actually think a little bit in that area, in gamification and game-based learning, because VR can be as lonely and boring without these principles.
Yes.
So for me, games, principle of the game, become very important for motivation, engagement of our students.
So you basically almost bumped into it and realized that it could be extremely useful for what you were doing in your daily endeavors. And I think that's probably one of the best places to find it at, because you come at it not with a certain degree of I don't completely trust this, I'm going to try it out and see how it goes.
Yep.
And then of course, if it does work, you're even if you tested it out in that sense, you can move forward at a faster pace, because as well you have a great team that's working with you.
Yes, and it's art. We shouldn't forget the game is art, and that is a lot of fun developing games. So I was also looking into some way to inspire the team. Instead of just working on the lecture style online courses, we now bring a lot of fun developing games and actually delivering it to our students.
That sounds fantastic and very inspirational. So there you go, engagers. There's a lot to take from that, from all the things that Naza said in this and all of the previous questions. Naza, if there's anything else that you want to leave us with, any final piece of advice, then please let us know where we can find more information about you, about Naza, the work that you're doing at the university or anywhere else. And then we'll say it's game over.
So I will be definitely sharing all our resources, and please use them. We have framework, methodology. We have all our games are open, and I just want to say that we're here to share our knowledge. So anyone have questions, please connect with us.
Fantastic. Where can we find you in the world of the internet?
On the internet, maybe through LinkedIn, the easiest, by my name, and all other way is de.ryerson.ca.
Great. We'll have that in the show notes. So if you want to find all of these links, you can just go to professorgame.com, type Naza, Naza, and you'll see all of the show notes, all the links. You'll see how to spell Naza's last name, which is not an easy one, just from hearing me do a terrible pronunciation. And you'll find all of these links. You'll be able to connect with her on LinkedIn if you want. You'll be able to find the webpage that she mentioned, and you'll be able to connect and ask any of the questions that are burning inside and that you want to make sure are answered by Naza. However, our time for today has run out, and now it's time to say that it's game over.
Game over.
Engagers, it is fantastic to have you around. And this podcast only makes sense with you, so please, let's connect on Twitter so you can let me know of different things, your opinion, who would you like as guests, if you have any questions, what we can actually help you with through Professor Game. You can find my Twitter account in professorgame.com/Twitter. I'm always open and sharing content on gamification, especially around education, learning, and training. Hey, wait, don't click continue yet. Do you want to know how to be an optimistic skeptic in gamification? Then all you have to do is subscribe using your favorite podcast app and listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there.